Chapter 2.8 continued, absolute value inequalities. We just talked about how to graph an actual absolute value. Now let's go ahead and discuss how we can graph an absolute value inequality. You guessed it, you're going to put together the first two notes that we did in this section, graphing inequalities and then graphing absolute values, and we're putting them together and we're graphing absolute value inequalities. So you know all the information, we're just going to do some examples and review. Review. Inequalities have symbols like less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and also not equal to is also an inequality symbol, but we're not going to discuss that right now. Boundary line is a solid or dotted line where the shading starts and stops. And just a reminder, a refresher, a solid line has an equal to or a line underneath. A dotted line is just greater than or less than. A solid line indicates that all the values on the line are also solutions to the inequality. Dotted line indicates that the values on the line are not solutions, and those are not answers to the actual inequality. You can't use the ones on the actual line. Now let's keep going. Oops. Just a reminder, is the line solid or dotted? Gives you a reminder, above the line or below the line. And when we're talking about inequalities, we're talking about the bottom or the top. Okay, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And also, just a quick reminder, when you get these thrown in, okay, y equals a number, let's just say, for example, y equals 2 is a horizontal line at y equals 2. So if I were to graph that, I would find where y equals 2, and I would draw a horizontal line at y equals 2, okay? When you have a vertical line, that equation is x equals 2, okay? So suppose I had x equals 2. That is a vertical line at x equal to 2. Okay, so that's the red line right here. So don't forget, those are also included. And when you have things that are less than or greater than of a vertical line, well, think about it. On the x-axis, greater than is over here, less than is over here. On the y-axis, less than is down here, greater than is up here. All right. Graph the following absolute value inequality. So we're going to do the same thing we did with absolute value equations, except now we're doing solid line, dotted line, and we're adding the shading. Because it's not equal to, it's an inequality. It's greater than or equal to. Okay, so we're doing the same thing. Instead of making an XY table, we're just going to use our HK, and we're going to use our A value. So here, my HK is -1, -1. If you remember, use the opposite sign. -1, -1, and my A value is -2. Okay, so I'm going to start at my vertex, or my HK. -1, -1 starts right here, and I'm going to have a -2 slope, meaning I'm going to go down 2 over 1. So down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Looks like this. Now, before you draw your line, or before you pick what type of line you have to make sure you look at your symbol. Since it's greater than or equal to, that means I'm using a solid line, so I'm fine. Okay, so I'm going to use that solid line for both of these because it is included in the actual solution. Now, before I continue, I have to make sure I shade because this is an inequality. We have to include the values that make this true. Well, since it's greater than, where are we above this V? Well, above is going to be up here in the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and shade the sky. Okay, and that is going to be all of this area. Now on Math Excel, I think you've probably already learned by now, the shading is the paint bucket. Okay, the shading is the paint bucket. And I'll try to make a couple videos so that you can see me do a couple of those, screen share a couple of those. Okay, and that is the solution to, or the graph of this inequality. Let's try another one. So y is less than -2/3 x, absolute value of x minus 1 plus 3. Well, I have to start out with my HK. So HK is 1/3. And remember, opposite symbol for the H. And my A value is -2/3. So I'm going to start at 1/3. And I'm going to go down 2 over 3. Down 2 over 3. Same thing this way, down 2 over 3. Because of the negative, down 2 over 3. Now am I making a solid line or a dotted line when I draw this? Dotted line, so on Math Excel I would pick the dotted line tool. Dotted line, or on, make sure you, however you can, make a dotted line here and here. That's a little bit off, but we'll go ahead with it. And then we're going to shade less than. So that's below the dotted line. So when I go to shade, I'm going to choose less than. Pick a different color for fun this time. So less than is down here. I got a little out of control there. And there is less than. There we go. A little bit better. All right. Oh, I have a blank page there. Write an absolute value inequality for the following graph. So remember, I would always start writing this. Oops. Pick a pen so that it's not so large. So I have y equals a times x minus h plus k. Okay. The only thing is I have to replace the equal sign, the h, k, and a. So first things first, I'm going to figure out what hk is. Well, if this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, we have 3, 0 is my vertex, this point right here. So I'm going to plug in 3 for h and 0 for k. Now, my a value, how many am I going up and over? Well, I have to think to myself, each line is worth 2, so I'm going to go up 2 over, this would be 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 6 it looks like that's where it hits. 2, 4, 6, so up 2 over 6, so that's 2/6. And I can reduce that to 1/3, so it'd probably be up 1 over 3, which looks like that is the case, up 1 over 3. So 1/3. So I'm going to change that down here to 1/3. And then I have to replace my inequality symbol with, is it shaded below or above? And what kind of line? Well, it's shaded below, which means I'm going to have less than or less than and equal to. And since I have a dotted line, that means I have to have less than. So I'm putting that less than symbol in here. And I have 3, and then plus 0, x minus 3, and there it is. Okay, now this graph is ugly because of the way it's numbered, so let's try another one that looks a little nicer. Okay, so for this one, each line is worth 1, so I'm going to pick my hk, so remember, y equals a times x minus h plus k is my how I'm going to start, and then I have to replace my a, h, k, and then my symbol. Those are the things you have to replace. Start with your hk. Well, it's -1, -1. So I'm going to put in -1 here and -1 here. And then my slope goes up 1 over 1. So my slope is just 1 over 1, or 1. Okay, and then I'm shading above, and it's a dotted line, so it has to be greater than. So y is greater than 1 times, and then x minus -1, so which changes it to plus -1. Okay, so let's rewrite this. So it's y is greater than x plus 1 minus 1. And that's it.